The tiny grave. The night was cold. The stars shone faintly above the barren alien land. A small village stood silent, its houses built from stone and metal scraps. On the edge of this village, an alien mother knelt down on the hard ground. Her hands were shaking, her eyes swollen from endless crying. Before her was a tiny grave, freshly covered with dust and stones. She whispered words of sorrow, her voice trembling like a broken string. She had lost her child, or at least that was what everyone believed. The child had been weak since birth, too fragile to survive in a world where only strength mattered. Villagers had mocked her, telling her that her child had zero value, that she should not waste tears. But she never stopped loving, never stopped hoping. Yet tonight, as she sat beside the grave, her hope was gone. The wind howled through the empty streets, carrying whispers of judgment from the villagers. Some passed by, shaking their heads. Why cry for dust? The weak cannot live, they said. Others laughed quietly. Her child was born worthless, not even fit to grow. The mother closed her eyes, trying to block their words, but they cut into her heart like sharp blades. She pressed her forehead against the stones, whispering, "I am sorry, my little one." Her grief was deep, and loneliness surrounded her like a dark cloud. The world felt empty. She did not notice the footsteps that approached slowly from behind. A human traveler, dressed in worn clothes, stood quietly at a distance. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with sorrow, as if he carried the pain with her. He had wandered into this village by chance, but destiny had led him to this grave. The human stepped forward, his shadow falling across the ground. The mother lifted her head in fear. She had heard of humans, but never seen one so close. Their kind was strange to her people. They were known as fighters, survivors, builders of impossible things. Why would such a being stand before her in her weakest moment? "Why do you kneel here?" the human asked softly. His voice was calm like flowing water. The mother hesitated, her throat dry. Finally, she whispered, "This is the grave of my child. He was too weak. He is gone." The human bent down, touching the cold stones with his hand, his brow furrowed. He shook his head slowly. "No, not gone," he said. The mother stared at him in shock. "What do you mean?" "The life has left him," she cried. Her tears ran down her face like rivers. The human's eyes locked with hers, and she saw no mockery in them, only stubborn belief. "Where there is even a spark, humans never give up," he replied. He brushed aside the stones with his bare hands, ignoring the gasps of the villagers who had gathered nearby. "Stop him," one elder muttered. "He insults our ways." But none moved. They were frozen by curiosity. As the human uncovered the small body, pale and still, the crowd began to laugh. "Foolish human, what can you do?" one shouted. The mother turned her face away, unable to watch. She could not bear another heartbreak. But then she heard the human's voice, strong and steady. "Life is not measured by strength alone," he said. He pressed his hands on the child's chest, warmth flowing from his palms. The human whispered strange words, not in the alien tongue. The villagers shook their heads, convinced it was madness. "He fights against death itself," someone mocked. Minutes passed like hours. The mother's heart pounded, torn between hope and despair. The human's breath grew heavy, sweat falling from his face. Suddenly, a faint sound broke the silence. A weak gasp escaped the child's lips. The tiny chest moved just once, but it was enough to shatter the air of hopelessness. The mother turned sharply, her eyes wide. "No," she whispered, afraid to believe. The child's hand twitched slightly under the human's touch. The villagers stopped laughing, their voices cut short. All stood in silence as the impossible unfolded before their eyes. The human opened his eyes and whispered, "Breathe, little one, breathe." His hands kept pressing gently, rhythmically. And then, another breath came, weak but real. The alien child's eyes fluttered open, faint glowing orbs, fragile but alive. The mother fell to her knees, her cry echoing into the night, not of despair but of joy. She grabbed her child, holding him tightly, tears soaking the small face. The villagers stepped back, fear and awe mixing in their hearts. Some murmured, "Is this human a healer? Or a curse?" Others remained silent, unable to explain what they had witnessed. The human stood slowly, his hands trembling from exhaustion. yet his eyes shone with quiet triumph. He looked at the mother and said, "Do not mourn a grave when life still breathes." The mother bowed her head, unable to find words. She had thought her child lost forever, yet here he was, breathing again because of this stranger's hands. The villagers who once mocked now stood in uneasy silence. The grave that was meant to hold death had become a symbol of hope, and in that moment, the mother realized something she had never known before. Sometimes, salvation came not from her own people, but from the hands of a human. The human's hands. The village was no longer silent. The people had seen what should have been impossible. A child they thought lost forever was breathing again, brought back by the hands of a human. Whispers spread quickly, some calling it a miracle, others calling it dangerous. The alien mother held her child close, afraid to let go, afraid that if she blinked the life would fade again. Her tears fell onto the small face, and for the first time the child's weak hand touched her cheek. It was soft, trembling, but alive. The mother sobbed louder, clutching the tiny fingers. The human stood nearby, his chest rising and falling heavily. His clothes were dusty, his palms scratched from digging the grave open. His eyes, however, were steady, focused not on the crowd, but on the fragile life he had fought for. He bent down slowly, speaking gently. "Your child still needs strength. Do not lose hope again." The villagers began to argue among themselves. "This is against nature," one shouted. "The dead must stay dead," said another. But others whispered in awe. "He gave life. No elder, no healer, no priest could do this. Only him." Suspicion and wonder clashed like storm winds, dividing the people. The mother lifted her face, looking at the human with trembling lips. "Why did you do this for me? For my child? You do not know us," she asked. Her voice was broken but full of desperate gratitude. The human's gaze softened. He answered simply, "Because no child should be left in the ground while a chance remains. Because every mother's tears are the same." The words struck her heart. For years she had believed humans were cold, fighters who cared only for themselves. Yet here was one, standing before her, showing more mercy than her own kind. She bowed her head, whispering, "Then may the stars bless your hands." But not everyone was moved. The village elder, a tall figure with stern eyes, stepped forward. His staff struck the ground as he declared, "This is forbidden. He breaks the balance. He defies death. This human brings danger to us all." His words carried authority, and some villagers nodded in fear. The human straightened, meeting the elder's glare. "If saving life is a crime, then let your laws judge me," he said calmly. "But remember this. Your people mocked her child. They left him to die. I did not." His voice cut through the air like steel. The elder's eyes narrowed, but he could not deny the truth. The mother clung tighter to her child, as if protecting both the infant and the human who had dared to fight death. The child whimpered softly, his small breaths uneven. The human knelt again, taking out a small pouch from his belt. Inside were herbs and powders unknown to the aliens. He mixed them with water and carefully fed a drop to the child. The villagers leaned closer, their curiosity stronger than their fear. The child's breathing eased, color slowly returning to the pale skin. The mother gasped in relief, bowing again. "Your hands, they are not only strong, they are kind," she whispered. But whispers in the crowd turned darker. What if he curses the child? What if this is only a trick? What if he takes the mother's soul next? Fear twisted their voices. Shadows of suspicion spread like fire. The human ignored them, focusing only on the fragile life in front of him. Night grew colder, and the stars shone brighter. The fire in the center of the village flickered, casting long shadows on the people's faces. The mother asked in a trembling voice, "Will he live? Truly live?" The human placed his hand gently on the child's chest. "He will, but it will take time. His strength is not yet full. You must protect him, and never let despair bury him again." The words gave the mother courage. She nodded firmly, holding her child like the most precious treasure. But in the crowd, anger boiled. The elder raised his staff once more. "This human must be judged. His powers are not welcome here," he declared. "Tomorrow, he will stand before us, and the council will decide his fate." The villagers murmured in agreement. Fear outweighed gratitude. Suspense hung in the air. Would the human be punished for saving life? Or would truth rise above fear? The mother's heart raced. She looked at the human, her eyes full of both fear and determination. She whispered, "If they punish you, then they punish me too. For without you, my child would be nothing but dust." The human gave her a faint smile, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. "Do not fear for me. I have faced worse than angry words. What matters is that he breathes. What matters is that hope lives." The night ended with silence. But the silence was not peace. It was the silence of waiting, of judgment yet to come. The villagers returned to their homes, whispering about the stranger who had defied death. The mother stayed awake beside her child, watching every breath, terrified it might stop. And the human sat near the fire, his hands trembling, his eyes staring into the flames. He had saved one life, but he knew the battle ahead would not be with death. It would be with fear, suspicion, and the weight of alien laws. The awakening. The dawn broke over the alien village, painting the skies in shades of violet and gold. The cold air carried the whispers of last night's miracle. Everyone had seen the child breathe again. Everyone had seen the human's hands defy the grave. Yet no one knew what would happen now. The mother sat beside her child, refusing to close her eyes. Every breath the boy took felt like a victory, every twitch of his small fingers a gift. She stroked his hair softly, whispering lullabies. Her heart trembled with both fear and hope. Would this fragile flame of life survive the storms to come? The human remained nearby, his body weary but his spirit unshaken. His eyes never strayed far from the child. He had fought against despair before, but never had he felt such heavy eyes upon him. The villagers watched from a distance, some filled with awe, some with fear. They had never trusted outsiders, and now one had touched the line between life and death. As the morning light touched the child's face, a sound broke the silence. A weak cough escaped his lips. His chest rose and fell more steadily. His eyelids trembled, and slowly, painfully, they opened. Two glowing eyes, dim but alive, looked up at the world once again. The mother gasped and covered her mouth. Her tears fell freely as she whispered, "My son, my little one." She gathered him in her arms, rocking him gently. Her voice cracked with joy. "You are here. You are with me." The villagers nearby froze, their doubts shaken. None could deny what their eyes saw. The human knelt down beside the mother. He placed 2 fingers on the child's wrist, feeling the faint but real pulse. A small smile touched his lips. "He is fighting. He is stronger than you believe," he said quietly. The mother looked at him with wide eyes. "How can I ever thank you?" she whispered. But before he could answer, harsh voices rose. The elder and his council had arrived. Their steps echoed with authority. Their robes brushed against the ground as they approached. The crowd parted in silence. All eyes turned to them. The elder's face was stern, his eyes full of suspicion. "Enough of this," the elder declared. "You have brought danger among us. Human hands meddle with things they do not understand. This child should be at peace, not dragged back from the grave." His words struck the mother like a blade. She clutched her child tightly, shaking her head. "No, do not call it danger. Call it life," she cried. The human stood tall, facing the elder without fear. His voice carried strength. "He breathes. He lives. That is not danger. That is hope." The elder raised his staff, his tone sharp. "Hope is fragile. Hope can turn to curse. We must decide if this act is blessing or blasphemy." The villagers murmured, torn between fear and faith. Some whispered, "The child lives. Is that not enough?" Others muttered, "He has stolen from death. Who will pay the price?" Suspicion hung heavy in the air. The child, weak but aware, lifted his small hand and touched his mother's cheek. His eyes flickered toward the human. His lips parted, forming a faint sound. It was not clear, but it was directed at the one who saved him. The mother's heart soared. She cried out, "He sees you. He knows you saved him." For a moment the villagers were silent. For a moment the impossible seemed undeniable. A dead child could not reach out. A dead child could not speak. Yet this one had. The human bent closer, his voice soft. "Rest, little one. Your fight has just begun." The child's breathing steadied, fragile but rhythmic. The mother looked around at the people and shouted, "You all called him worthless. You mocked him. You laughed when I cried. But look at him now, breathing because of this man. Her words echoed through the crowd, shaking some hearts. But the elder's eyes narrowed further. If the human saved him, then let the human prove his intentions. Tonight, at the council fire, he will answer for his deeds. If he is pure, we shall honor him. If not, he shall be cast out. The villagers gasped, some nodded in agreement. Others looked uneasy. The mother's face grew pale. She turned to the human, fear in her eyes. He only gave a calm smile. Do not fear, I will stand before them. Life itself is proof enough. The day passed slowly. Suspense grew heavier with every hour. The child slept peacefully in his mother's arms. Each breath a miracle. The villagers avoided speaking to the human, but their eyes never stopped watching him. Some looked with respect, others with mistrust. As the sun set, the village prepared for the council fire. Torches were lit. Drums echoed. The human washed his hands quietly at the river, watching the crimson sky above. He whispered to himself, I did not come here for judgment, but if judgment is what they seek, I will face it. The mother sat with her child, her heart torn. She feared what the council might decide. She feared losing the one who had given her son back to her. But she also felt a growing fire inside her, a strength she had never known. She whispered to her son, no matter what they do, I will not let them take him from us. As night fell, the flames of the council fire lit the village square. The crowd gathered. The elder stood tall, and the human walked forward, steady and unafraid. Beside him, the mother held her child. Her eyes burned with determination. The awakening of the child had not only breathed life into a fragile body, it had awakened something greater. Faith, fear, and the test of what humanity truly meant. The price of life. The flames of the council fire roared high into the night sky, casting long shadows over the village square. The people gathered in a circle, their faces half lit by firelight, fear and curiosity flickering in their eyes. The mother stood with her child in her arms, her heart pounding like a drum. Beside her, the human stood tall, calm yet weary. The elder raised his staff, striking it against the stone ground. This gathering begins, he declared. His voice was sharp and commanding. We meet to decide the fate of the outsider. He has touched the border between life and death. He has broken what should never be broken. The villagers murmured, some nodding in agreement, others shifting uncomfortably. They could not deny the child lived, yet they feared the cost of such a miracle. Life has a price, whispered one old woman. If death is cheated, then something else must pay. The mother stepped forward, her voice trembling yet fierce. If there is a price, let it be mine, for it was my tears he answered, my grief he touched. Without him, my child would be only dust. She held up the boy for all to see. His small chest rose and fell steadily, weak but alive. The elder's eyes narrowed. You defend him as though he were your kin, but what if the price of this act is greater than you imagine? What if it brings ruin upon us all? His words fed the fear of the crowd. Murmurs spread like wine through dry grass. The human raised a hand, his voice calm. I did not come here to bring ruin. I came here only as a wanderer. When I saw her grief, I could not turn away. If that is a crime, then judge me guilty. He paused, his chest tightening, a cough rising in his throat. Blood touched his lips, but he wiped it away quickly. The mother gasped softly. You are hurt, she whispered. The human shook his head. Saving life always takes from the giver. But that is no curse. That is the way of hands that heal. The price is mine to bear. The villagers leaned closer, hearing his words. Some were moved. Others hardened their hearts. The elder pointed his staff toward the child. Then tell us, human, will this boy live a full life? Or will your power fade, leaving him cursed and broken? The human knelt beside the child, placing a hand gently on his small chest. He closed his eyes for a moment, then spoke. He will live, if his people choose love over fear, if his mother protects him, if your hearts give him a place. He will live not because of me, but because hope was given a chance. The mother cried out, do you not hear? He speaks truth. He has given us back what we lost, and yet you wish to punish him. Her voice cracked, but her words were strong. The elder frowned, but the crowd stirred. For the first time, villagers whispered words of agreement. The boy breathes. How can we call it wrong? The human gave, not took. Perhaps the hands of men are blessed after all. But others hissed in fear. If he can give life, he can take it. He is dangerous. His presence alone is dangerous. Suspicion clawed back into the square. The human coughed again, falling to one knee. His body trembled. The effort of healing had drained him deeply. The mother rushed to his side, steadying him with her free arm. "You gave your strength for my son, and they still call you curse," she whispered bitterly. He smiled faintly, his voice weak but steady. "Do not be angry. Fear blinds the eyes. Time will open them." He lifted his gaze to the villagers. "I have nothing more to prove." The child breathes. That is all the proof needed. The elder raised his staff high, preparing to speak judgment. But before he could, the child stirred in his mother's arms. His glowing eyes opened, and for the first time he gave a small laugh. Weak but clear, the sound cut through the night like a ray of sunlight breaking through clouds. The villagers froze, their fear wavered. A laugh was not the sound of the cursed, a laugh was the sound of life. The mother wept again, kissing her child's forehead. The human closed his eyes, relief washing over his tired face. The elder lowered his staff slowly, his voice less certain now. Perhaps this is not curse," he muttered. But he quickly recovered his sternness. "Yet the council has not decided. We will meet again at dawn. Until then, the human will remain under watch." Guards stepped forward, surrounding the human. The mother cried out, "Do not take him. He is weak. He needs rest." The human raised his hand gently. "It is fine. I will go with them. I have no fear of judgment. I gave life, not death." The guards led him away, his steps slow but steady. The fire crackled louder, as if mocking the silence of the crowd. The mother fell to her knees, holding her child tightly. "They do not see yet, but one day they will," she whispered. And as the human disappeared into the shadows, the mother knew the truth in her heart. The price of life had already been paid, not with curses or dark omens, but with the blood, strength, and mercy of human hands. The trial. The dawn broke heavy with tension. The sky glowed red as if even the heavens knew a judgment was coming. The villagers gathered once again in the square, the council fire now burning low but steady. Their faces were grim, some hopeful, others full of fear. At the center stood the human, guarded by two tall warriors. His hands were not bound, yet his freedom was an illusion. His body was weak from exhaustion, but his gaze was steady. He carried no fear in his eyes, only resolve. Beside him, the mother clutched her child close to her chest, refusing to leave. The elder stood tall before the crowd, his staff striking the earth. "Today we judge," he declared. This human interfered with death. He reached where no outsider should reach. We must decide, is he a savior or a danger? His words rolled through the crowd like thunder. The villagers murmured, torn between two truths. They had seen the child breathe again. They had seen him laugh, yet fear clung to them, whispering that no life could be given without a hidden cost. The mother stepped forward, her voice raw but powerful. "You call him danger, yet look at my son. Look at him breathing. You all mocked me. You all said my child had no value. Yet this man, who was not even of our kind, gave him back to me." Her words echoed, cutting deep into the silence. Some villagers nodded, their hearts stirred, but others shook their heads. "No one cheats death without darkness," one muttered. "What if the boy grows cursed? What if our land suffers for this crime?" The human finally spoke, his voice calm. "You fear what you do not understand, but listen well. I did not steal from death. I gave what little I had to keep a spark alive. I bled for him. I weakened myself for him. That is no curse. That is sacrifice." He coughed again, blood staining his lips. The mother reached to steady him, but he waved her off gently. "Do not fear. This is the price of life, one I chose to pay," he said. His words fell heavy, and the villagers could not ignore the truth in them. The elder raised his staff. "Words are not proof. Show us then. Show us that this boy will live without shadow. Show us that your hands bring only life, not doom." His demand was sharp, impossible to satisfy. The crowd grew restless. Some cried, "Let him go. He has done no harm." Others shouted, "Cast him out before the curse spreads." The square became a storm of voices. clashing louder and louder. Suddenly, the child stirred in his mother's arms. His small hand rose, reaching toward the human. His glowing eyes opened, not with fear but with trust. He gave a soft sound, a laugh mixed with a cough. The crowd fell silent instantly. The mother lifted the child high, her voice ringing with strength. Does this look like curse? Does this sound like death? This is life, life given back by hands you called dangerous. Her tears shone in the morning light. If you cast him out, then you cast out me too, for I will not betray the one who gave me my son. The human looked at her, surprise flickering in his tired eyes. He had not expected her to stand so boldly. The villagers stared in silence, torn between the elders' authority and the truth before them. The elders' face darkened. Your words are strong, but fear remains stronger. If the boy lives, time will tell. Until then, this man cannot remain free. He lifted his staff. He will be judged again when the moons rise. If the boy thrives, his act will be honored. If not, he will be punished. Gasps spread through the crowd. It was neither freedom nor final doom. It was a trial of waiting. Suspense grew heavier than ever. The mother's heart ached, but she whispered to her child, "You must live. You must prove them wrong." The human nodded slowly, accepting. If time is the trial, then so be it. Let time show what you fear to see now. His voice was firm despite his weakness. The villagers dispersed, some whispering of hope, some muttering of curses. The human was led away to a small hut where guards would watch him. The mother returned to her home. Refusing to rest, she sat beside her son, holding his hand tightly, praying every breath would carry him closer to life. And as the sun rose higher, the weight of the trial hung heavy over the village. A miracle had been given, but fear demanded proof. The human's fate now lay in the fragile breaths of an alien child. Respect earned. The moons rose high above the alien village, their pale light shining on the quiet streets. The trial was not yet decided, but the people's hearts were restless. They whispered in their homes, arguing in hushed tones. Some said the human was cursed. Others said he was blessed. The fire of doubt had not gone out, but the spark of hope had begun to grow. In her small home, the mother sat awake beside her child. His breaths were steady now. His eyes opened with more strength than before. She smiled through tears, whispering softly, "You are my proof, my shield, my light." Her hands trembled as she kissed his forehead, knowing the council would demand proof again. The human, kept under watch in the hut, sat silently. His body was weak, his veins heavy with exhaustion, but his spirit was unbroken. He looked up at the moons and whispered, "If they fear me, so be it. If they doubt me, so be it. But the child must live. That is all that matters." When dawn broke, the council fire was lit once more. The villagers gathered quickly, anxious for the final judgment. The elder stood tall, his face carved from stone. "We meet again," he declared. "Time was given. Now we must see if the boy thrives. If he does, this human may walk free. If not, his fate is sealed." All eyes turned as the mother walked into the square. Her arms no longer carried the boy. Instead, the child walked beside her, weak but standing. His small hand clutched her fingers. His glowing eyes looked around curiously at the crowd. A wave of shock spread through the villagers. Gasps echoed. "He walks," someone whispered. "Impossible. He was in the ground." Another cried. The child stumbled, but the mother held him steady. She lifted her voice, clear and strong. "Look at him. You all said he had no value. You all said he was gone. Yet here he is, alive, breathing, walking before you." The crowd fell silent, every eye fixed on the small boy. His steps were fragile but real, his laughter soft but clear. No curse lingered in him, only life. The elder's staff trembled slightly in his hand. For the first time, his certainty wavered. The human was brought forward, his body weak, his breath uneven. He looked at the child and smiled faintly. "I told you, he is stronger than you think," he said. The villagers stared at the scene, all mixing with shame. One by one, voices began to rise. The human spoke truth. The boy lives because of him. Perhaps his hands are not curse, but blessing. The whispers turned to murmurs, then to shouts. Respect began to grow in the air. thick and undeniable. The mother's eyes shone with tears. She raised her voice again. You called me a fool. You mocked me when I wept. You buried my child with words of scorn. But he lives, not because of you, but because a human showed mercy where you showed cruelty. Her words struck deep, and many villagers lowered their heads in shame. The elder tried to raise his staff once more. Do not be blinded, he warned. Life always has a price. You see a child alive, but you do not see the shadow it casts. His voice struggled against the rising tide of belief. The human stepped forward, coughing but unafraid. The price was mine, he said. His voice was rough but steady. I gave my strength. I gave my blood. That is no shadow. That is sacrifice. And if sacrifice is a crime, then judge me guilty. The villagers looked at him, seeing not a curse but a man who had risked his own life for a child not his own. Slowly, one villager knelt, then another. Soon many bowed their heads. Respect, they whispered. Honor. The elder's authority cracked. His staff shook in his hand. He could not fight the truth standing before him. Finally, with a voice heavy with defeat, he lowered his staff and said, The boy lives, the human is free. A cheer rose from the crowd, not loud at first, but growing stronger. The mother wept openly, holding her child close. She turned to the human and whispered, You are no stranger now. You are brother to my people. The human looked at her, his eyes tired but kind. Do not honor me, he said. Honor the life that fought to stay. Honor the love that refused to die. His words spread like fire through the hearts of the villagers. They had feared him, but now they began to see him for what he was. That night, for the first time, the village sang. Their voices rose under the moons, not in fear but in respect. And though the human sat quietly apart, weary and pale, he knew that respect had been earned not for him alone, but for the bond of life that no grave could bury. Forever remembered. The village was no longer the same. The people who once mocked the mother and her child now bowed their heads in respect. The human who had been called cursed now walked free. Though his steps were weak, his body carried the weight of sacrifice, but his spirit carried a quiet strength. The mother walked beside him, her child holding her hand. The boy laughed softly, each sound a reminder of what had been saved. The villagers watched as he ran a few steps forward, stumbled, then stood again. It was a fragile miracle, yet it was real. At the council fire that evening, the elder stepped forward once more. His voice was heavy but changed. The child lives. The human has given what none of us could. We can no longer call him curse. We can only call him what he has earned. Brother. His staff lowered in respect, a gesture rare and powerful. The crowd echoed the word, brother. Their voices carried through the night, no longer whispers of fear, but chants of honor. The human looked around, his tired eyes shining. He had not come to earn titles, yet they had given him one that would never fade. The mother knelt before him, tears streaming down her face. You gave me back my son. You gave me back my hope. I cannot repay you, she whispered. The human reached down, lifting her gently. Repay me by living. Repay me by teaching your son that life is always worth fighting for. The boy tugged on the human's hand, his glowing eyes wide with innocence. He spoke a single word, soft but clear. Father. The crowd gasped. The mother covered her mouth, overcome by emotion. The human's chest tightened. He had lost much in his travels, but in this moment he felt something return, belonging. But the human shook his head gently, kneeling before the boy. I am not your father, little one. I am only a man who could not walk away. Yet his voice carried warmth, and the boy smiled, holding his hand tighter. The villagers came forward, one by one, offering food, water, and thanks. They had feared him, but now they treated him as kin. Children peeked shyly from behind their mothers, staring at the human with curiosity instead of fear. The world had shifted in one night. Days passed, and the boy grew stronger. His laughter filled the village. His steps grew firm. The human strength, however, faded little by little. The sacrifice had left scars that could not be undone, yet he never complained. He smiled at every laugh, every breath the child took, as if each was his own reward. One morning, as the sun painted the sky gold, the human prepared to leave. The mother begged him to stay. her tears fresh again. "Do not go. You are part of us now. You are part of him," she cried. The boy clung to his leg, unwilling to let go. The human's heart ached, but his path was not here. He placed a hand gently on the mother's shoulder. "Your people have their healer now," he said softly. "Not me, but your son, for he will grow strong. He will remember. He will teach others that life is sacred. That is my gift to you." The boy's eyes filled with tears. "Will you come back?" he whispered. The human smiled faintly, brushing the child's hair. "Perhaps, when the stars call me. But even if I do not return, I will always walk with you, in the breath you take, in the steps you walk." The mother fell to her knees, bowing deeply. "Then know this," she said, her voice steady though broken. "Your name will never be forgotten. In our songs, in our stories, you will live, forever remembered as the one whose hands gave life." The villagers raised their voices, chanting his name. Their voices echoed across the barren hills, carrying the story beyond the village, beyond the world. A human who gave life, a human who stood where none dared stand. As he walked away into the horizon, the boy's laughter followed him. The grave that once marked death now stood empty, a silent reminder that even when hope is buried, human hands can dig it free. And so the legend was born, a mother who mourned, a child who rose, and a human whose mercy defied the grave. From that day forward, whenever the villagers looked at the tiny grave, they no longer saw sorrow. They saw hope. They saw the proof that sometimes one human's hands could change the fate of an entire world.